Every week I've been trying to get you guys to a place where all of this nonsense actually makes some kind of sense because you see though it doesn't appear to make sense on the surface, it's a strategy in and of itself to confuse, to divide and conquer, to keep the have-nots, the disenfranchised, so discombobulated that they can't come together and pay attention or focus on, unite to deal with um, the plan of the powers to be or the haves. I'm always trying to bring up history to educate you, my family, I call the masses. Some of you are friends and family, and some of them are passing through and checking me out for the first time. And to some of those people, it might seem like they just tuned into History 101, U.S. History 101, of Physics 302. And it's by design. I think the more we understand about the process, the easier it is for us to stay engaged and stay energized. Without any further ado, I'm going to say good evening and welcome to the show. As always, I want to thank you for spending your Thursday nights with me. I am truly, truly humbled that you choose all the things you could be doing on a Thursday night. We decided to make it our family night here at Omit the Logic. I got something to say. So I'm just flabbergasted that you guys tune in, week out to hear what it is I have to say. I call my show Omit the Logic. I got something to say. It must be true. Why omit the logic? Because, as I say, the strategy, if you will, of the powers to be doesn't make sense on the surface. But I try to break the shit down to it's unfixably broke so that you can understand it in the simplest of terms. And sometimes I get caught up in the moment and, I start throwing out these Scrabble double word, triple letter score words and then I try to explain it, not insulting anyone's intelligence, but I try to use a language that kind of resonates with everybody. My name is Hank Batiste. I'm your host tonight, and the voices in my head are feeling kind of blasé and indifferent. Last week, without hesitation, I blasted Congress for benignly creating the Juneteenth holiday. I did so because I feel like Congress has been gorging themselves with maintaining the status quo. When I talk about the status quo, it's as old as music itself, be it the blues, be it jazz, be it gospel. But that song, them that's got you'll get. Them that's not your love house. For the Bible says, and it still is news, Mama may have, and Papa may have. But God bless a child that's got his own. That's got his own. Just off the top of my head, it's the separations between the haves and the have-nots. And when I thought about it, the song popped into my head. Congress has a way of procrastinating on things that make sense. They strip all of the meat from the bone of any meaningful legislation, and then they throw us these dry bones. And you know what happens? If you eat a bone and you leave it on the plate, you don't take your plate and toss it right away. In a matter of minutes, the bone starts to dry out, and whatever nutrients were left in the bone are no longer valid. And I felt that's what this so-called holiday, it has no substance. It would have really been nice to make Juneteenth part of a hate crimes law, or a tentative police reforms law, or George Floyd and voter rights guarantee law, to ensure that areas where we live, urban areas and densely populated areas by the poor, the blacks, the poor whites, the disenfranchised, and what have you, to make sure that our voices are heard and we're represented. But they chose not to. You see, it's not just us Black folks. I always talk about a Black agenda because we have a tendency to be the prototype for whatever laws that actually work. When something works for us, then they roll it out to other people, other protected groups. They starve us out. They stall us out. They procrastinate for so long. When they throw us any little smidgen of something, too many of us say, well, at least it's something. Fuck out of here with that. No, I want something that I can feel good about. If you want to give me Juneteenth, give me 40, give me 20, give me 12 acres. And instead of a mule, give me a brand new, fully loaded pickup so that I can build something. And I've said that before, and I'm saying it again because I want you guys to feel what I feel. When I posted the thing about Jimmy Walker, it's not that I'm beating the brother up. When I see Shaq on a product that paid for the defense of George Zimmerman, who carelessly killed this young boy who will be no more, and then he aligns himself with all of this hateful politics. When they do what they do, when they throw us scraps and they take the meat off the bone, what they do is they force us, like a feeding frenzy, to fight amongst ourselves for whatever little scraps that they throw us. So we wind up fighting for land that doesn't belong to us. We wind up fighting each other for a street corner or a color or some old other bullshit that means absolutely nothing. So it's the difference between a hood and a neighborhood or a community. We fight and struggle to survive. Why they take the meat and they're thriving, they're doing better, they're building wealth, they're making sure that themselves and their offspring and generation to follow, generations, listen to that. When we talk about certain people that have more money that they could spend in a lifetime, that's ridiculous. When we look at young athletes, one day they're multimillionaires. The next day they're selling freaking cars at the car dealership. The lucky ones are the Shaquille O'Neals and what have yous. But then Jimmy Walker, he had an opportunity to grow. And this is the same thing I said about Tyler Perry. So if you're a Tyler Perry fan, get over yourself. He has a chance, and I take it personal because my mom, my grandmother was a no titty bouncing, gun toting, foul mouth woman living in New Orleans. Yes, they did exist, but they were few and far between. They were not the norm. So I feel like to whom much is given, not only is it's required, as expected. So when you play dominoes, they tell you, first thing the old dudes tell you, hey, young blood, all money ain't good money. You get 5 points and you set my man up to get 35. And that's what happens. Shaq is taking this little money from the General and from Papa John's Pizzas, and they lend them their names and their likelihoods to these products that prey on us. But they don't do anything for our communities. So they keep our communities in our neighborhood being the hood. I'm sorry I went off, folks. But by doing that, they incite popular people. JJ got pissed because John Amos said, at what point is James Evans going to be able to keep a job or find a job to get his family up out of the hood, out of Cabrini Green's projects? I grew up at the age of 12. My mom's made a conscious decision to move into the Desire housing projects in the heart of the Ninth Ward. If you know anything about New Orleans, they used to have a saying, niggas from the 9 don't mind dying. I said, y'all could keep that shit. I'ma live. So the Desire was the most unwanted place to be once upon a time. When my mom's told me we was doing this, she said the reason she was doing it is because she says, son, this week you want to be Bruce Lee and take karate. The next week you want to box and be Muhammad Ali. The week after that you want to be Larry Graham and play the bass, and you want to be Fred Wesley and play trombone. All of that costs money. So I'm gonna move someplace where you will have some money to pursue your interests. That's gonna keep you off the street corner. But what she told me, and people used to always say, man, your mom is so nice. I said, no, that lady is crazy. She told me, she said, don't you get down there with them and act a fool, because you got to deal with me. And it was something as simple as that. Her example, that of my father and my mother, my grandparents, that gave me all the motivation I needed to want to do something with myself. But what was crazy is I found out that Desire was not just a hood. It was not just a project. It actually was a community. The Desire Housing Project and that community surrounding the project was actually a community. So it gave me a sense of pride. And what happened is, because they say, hey, that brother's smart as shit, man. He knows some stuff. You ever listen to him? That little brother's heavy as hell. I was like Michael Evans. And as a result, I was not preyed upon, but I got a chance to walk the streets with impunity. And the toughest of the gangsters, the toughest of the folks on the street, they looked out. Because I didn't just represent myself. I didn't just represent the Baptiste family and my mom and dad or my grandparents or my church. I represented the Desire community. So they wanted to see me get better. They wanted to see me do well. That's why I have a lot of those same people who follow me today. That's why I have a lot of those same people who are my friends on Facebook. Now, let me just be honest. Some of those people ain't gonna never support me, because some of those people have been jealous from day one. But that's that other cliche, letting your haters be your motivator. You understand? So I went off, folks. I went off the rails. But I wanted to tell you my motivation for tonight's show. Tonight's show, we're going to talk about divide and conquer. Tonight's show, we're going to talk about hate and the correlation to fear and privilege. Tonight's show is called Hate as American as Apple Pie. My name is Hank Batiste. Omit the logic. This shit makes no sense. I got something to say. It's true. It must be true. So let's get with it. Hate. Hate has always been a tool that the haves, the powers to be, used to control us, the black people, the poor people, the disenfranchised. So when I get pissed at the Shaqs and the reason I come down so hard on Shaq, let me explain something. When Shaq first came out of LSU, Shaq had this thing. He had beef with how Michael was living. Michael Jordan had this contract with Nike, making all of this money, and the Air Jordan shoes were more expensive. So Shaq said, I'm going to come out with a shoe that's moderately or cheaply priced, but still has the quality, so that black kids will not have to fight and kill each other over a tennis shoe. Okay? Then he came up with an organization for young people called TWISM. The world is mine. So when I look at the Shaq of today versus the Shaq of 2021 coming out of LSU with all of these grand ideas. So Shaq, if you hear me, my brother, I'm not coming down on you. I'm just telling you, with the old guys in the barbershop who would sit there all day and play dominoes. And every now and then they would invite you over. Come on over, young bro. Come on over here, young blood. You know how to play bones? These dudes knew every bone, every domino before it was laid. And they could lock you out just like that. And that's what the powers to be has been doing. So when you know that you're being used, when you know that you're taking this money, and this money ain't good money because it's causing people that you care about or that you once cared about, I don't know. Let me go on. Last week I told you, each week I'm going to build on the message from the previous week so that we can get to a place where all of this shit kind of makes some kind of sense, so that you can understand what I see when I look at it. You can see the strategy of these folks to keep us fighting, how they use this hate, this fear, this white fright, this, to create the JJs and this other little chicken. I'm not going to call their names because I'm not going to give them oxygen on my show. I called out 2 names because I posted them this week. And I don't care how or who promotes Papa John Pizza, don't buy that shit. The CEO of Papa John decided that he would pay for lawyers for George Zimmerman. And I'm not forgiving him. So you get no dollars from me. So I don't care if it's Shaq. I don't care if it's Michael Jordan. I don't care who it is. They could use a likeness of Jesus. In my mind, I say, what would Jesus do? And I know he wouldn't go for this bullshit. So it is what it is. Since the inception of this country, the rich, they once called themselves the aristocrats, the wealthy, the powers to be. They use politics to control us, the have-nots. And they simply put us in a place where we could do nothing else. As I say it time and time again, Most of the South was populated by poor folks who were indentured servants themselves. Some of them was one generation removed. Some was straight out the pauper's prisons to America. So what do you think happens when the slave becomes a slave owner? The same thing that happens when the abuser becomes the abused. He takes over and they become rootless. And that's what happens. The majority of former indentured servants, when they became slave owners, they became rootless. They looked at people as chattel, as cattle, as something that they own, because that's the way they were treated in England. The difference was what they were looking at didn't look like them. So the only way they could control somebody who was 6 feet, 272 pounds, was to break my spirit, was to try to take my wife and my children and separate my children from their family so they would have no sense of self. It's like being in school. If you ask Pookie or white boy Rick, if a train leaves DC headed west at 100 miles an hour and another train leaves Chicago headed east at 80 miles an hour, at which they stop listening as soon as you say a train, because it's not anything that they can relate to. They don't see themselves catching a train, therefore it means nothing to them. You lose them. But by the same token, if you tell Pookie, a white boy Rick, I'm going to give you a pound, a brick. This brick contains 16 OZs, or ounces. And you make that person responsible for all of that. Now, out of this brick, you're going to get X amount of dollars. If you cut it 20%, you're going to get Y amount of dollars. Now it's something that means something to them. So these young boys learn how to do that math in their heads, because the first time they mess up somebody's money, you don't get hit with the ruler in your hand in school, but you best believe Ray gonna beat your behind down. You mess up his money. If Pookie and white boy Rick can learn the answer to a drug problem, then what we have to do is impress on these young brothers to pull their pants up and circumvent the criminal justice system. Because the first time they go to jail and they get their cookies took, now they want to get a GED. When they're on the corner, school is for fools and blase. But once they become convict number 687215385, whatever, they need this GED and they want to do something. But coming out, I talked last week and the week before about the criminal just us system and how something as simple as little brother Yusuf in New York supposedly stole a backpack. He was saddled with a $300 bill for bail assistance. His family couldn't come up with $300, so he stayed in jail from the time he was 16 to the time he was 20. And I promise you, in 4 years, the kid or the man that came out of jail wasn't the man that went in, or the young boy that went in. And that's what I try to get these boys to understand. So I'm not preaching to you. I'm just trying to educate, because each one has to reach one to teach one. This is what I call the complex conundrum or the paradox of slavery, where the slave owner was once a slave. So when this young boy has his own crew, he becomes rootless, and so on and so on and so on. When he comes out, he's not the same brother that went in. Now he's trying to convince himself and others that simply because he had sex with a man does not make him gay. So this paradox, this conundrum, it's how the the Epsteins and the Matt Gates and all of these folks, all of these so-called privileged people can justify in their mind slavery. I'm not just talking about black folks, I'm talking about women. This is why they don't see it as pimping. They see it as just moving, well, I saved them from themselves. I'll put them in a situation where they could earn and blase, blase, blase. No. This is what trafficking is. So now you start to see how all of this shit is connected and how all roads lead to what? Back to this system that's led by the powers to be. If I could do anything, and the reason I don't run for office is because I don't want to become part of a system, of a municipality, of a state that preys on our young folk and turn them into public enemy number one. I get pissed when I see these folks with their preserving the status quo. Somebody must be talking about me because my ears itching like hell. Preserving the status quo, even in Congress. When I look at in 2017 and 2019, Congress passed like this: tax bills that became laws that gave up to 7 and 10 years to the wealthy, the haves, the powers to be, the richest 1% to 3% of the population here in America, gave them tax breaks, reducing the amount of taxes that they had to pay. And the shit was legal. Why? Because they did it. This is why I try to educate folks, because until we come together to fight all of these immoral bullshit laws, it's going to continue to happen. When Joe Biden, when I start pushing this dude from 2017, I say he knew enough about the system. He came out the gate an ass, but now he's starting to get bogged down. And I think they're doing what I said. I said they need to put some pressure on Manchin, because Manchin is trying to play by the rules. I think he realized now that he's a man without a country. He's a man without a party. He's a neo-Dixiecrat. And right now he's walking alone and he's feeling the heat as much as he hates to admit it. But that's what hate is, folks. Biden is trying to keep his campaign promise to tax the wealthy, but it's never going to pass because the people that vote on it profit from it. So it's up to us, folks. Remember, I told you politics makes strange bedfellows. It's starting to make sense now, huh? You see how all of this coming together? Folks, I talked about being amused and pissed last week. I'm still amused and pissed. I'm amused and pissed that, on one hand, the Dems have an opportunity and they're not seizing the opportunity. So what I keep saying is we have to but to demand and have a strong enough political front to be a force to be reckoned with. That's all this is. When I start talking about patronizing versus these momentous occasions, Juneteenth, you're patronizing me. You're insulting my intelligence because there's nothing that goes along with this holiday. We need a hate bill. We need a Black Lives Matter bill. Will it ever pass? By the time they strip all the meat off the bone, ain't gonna mean shit. We need to make sure that somehow we have a plan for economics so we don't have to wait on Uncle Sam generosity to give us another stimulus check. When I look at people who made more sitting on their asses at home than they made on a job, I said something is wrong with this. On one hand, I don't want anybody to get that comfortable doing nothing. I promise you, I'm retired and I probably do more now than I did when I was working a job. Because right now, I feel a need to make sure that you have what I have. I am truly blessed in that I planned for this day. So I don't have to go and be a greeter at Walmart. I don't have to, my God, I don't have to walk around saying God is good all the time and all the time God is good. My word, my life is my testimony. I'm not bragging, I'm stating facts. So when I come down hard on these brothers, when I come down hard on these young brothers, I'm doing so because I want you to grow old. I want you to know what it's like to be 61 and prettier than a mug. I don't have all of this, not because I haven't been stressed, but because I understood. And once you understand a game, you can play the game to win. You can play the game to thrive, not survive. So with all of that, folks, I'm going to cut it right there. You know what we need. I could be redundant and tell you we need Black Lives Matter and we need voting rights and we need this and we need that. And your life is your testimony. All I'm here for is to teach you how to articulate what it is that you need and then plan for us coming together to ensure that we get it. Because if we depend on the next George Floyd or the next Ahmaud Arbery getting killed before we pick up a sign and say no justice, no peace, we're not getting anywhere. We've got to be proactive. And that's the reason for my show. So with that, I'm going to say thank you for tuning in. As always, I am truly, truly humbled that you listen to what this Black man has to say. There's nothing special about me, just like Thurgood said. There's nothing special about me. I just happen to be in a place with a set of tools. So I'm trying to use this tool to build us a house where we can thrive, not survive. Do that. Each one, teach one, so each one can reach one. Share it with somebody else. Knowledge ain't good if you keep it all to yourself. All those pieces of paper I have with degrees in it don't mean nothing if I don't do something. If I get on here and all I'm doing is hollering and screaming every week and I'm not talking about how we can be proactive and come together and make it work, it means nothing. That's the difference between trying to be an influencer and just getting numbers and having a sincere, heartfelt message. So as I always say, don't be so afraid to die that you forget to live for a purpose. A couple of my Facebook friends said, leave JJ alone. He's doing what he has to do. I said, no, these are the choices that brother made. Your mama, your grandmother, just like my mama and my grandmother and all them other brothers and sisters and all of my surrogate mamas and daddies and all of the pimps and the pushers and the knuckleheads who looked out for me walking the streets of New Orleans. They all had one message. They may not say it the same way, but they simply said, If you don't stand for something, you fall for anything. With that, as always important, I wish you love, wish you peace. Like your man, some hair grease. Not that Royal Crown stuff or that bergamot. My grandfather had the Duke joint, man. My grandfather had a pompadour until he was 90. But anyway, folks, I'm out of here. Y'all have a great week. Thank you. Thank you sincerely for tuning in. I'll see you next week. Same Baptiste time, same Baptiste place.